Okay, and Joseph, we are live, and I'm going to adjust the volume a bit, but do you want to introduce what we are doing a little bit?
Absolutely. So today we are live streaming and going to have discussions about strategy while following a computer game tournament. This is the Hidden Cup 5. In just a moment, I'm going to ask you to kind of explain the rules and also give us an overview of how this particular tournament works and who's winning so far. But we are in the semifinals, and the game is called Age of Empires. This game is unusual for a couple of reasons. The main reason why it's significant is that it's a real-time strategy game that still has a large player base and is still being updated more than 20 years after it first came out. The game came out in 1999. There was a graphics update in 2013 and again in 2019. And you and I both grew up playing it. It's kind of a 80s child, 90s child game, but it's aged well. And it's very, very rich with strategy and lots to talk about. So that's a brief overview of what Age of Empires is. If you haven't played it, I recommend it. Joseph, you got me back into playing this one about 3 years ago, and this is kind of the online game that I play.
Yep. Same. I am not a huge gamer, but Age of Empires 2 hits that sweet spot. Like you said, it has aged like fine wine. So, Joseph and I are behind a little bit on the first game, and so I'm actually going to um, the new Capture Age. Yeah,
Capture Age is the program that
will
we're
you
using
will
to
you
start the game.
stall will you stall for time just a second while I figure out how to speed this up? I apologize to live time because we're obviously just a little bit behind.
Absolutely. So in this tournament, this is called the Hidden Cup 5,
I'm sorry, just
and
actually I have
it
to
is.
interrupt you. How did you unpause? The reason why we look so helpless and hopeless, by the way, is because we're using a different version of Capture Age specifically for this tournament. So normally we kind of know how to do things, but how do we unpause? I apologize.
I went into the game and hit F3 and
Oh, there we go.
turned off Capture Age. I'm trying to get back into Capture Age at the moment, actually.
Oh, that would do it. Yep. Okay. Well, I'm going to hit fast forward in the game itself. Oh, come on. Are we gonna? It's auto pausing for me. Mm, and I'm also hearing that there's not video. Procasters, folks, 1,000%. Oh, I know why. It's grabbing the wrong window. Okay. Stall for more time
There we
for me,
go.
Joseph, please.
Could you briefly give us an overview of how this tournament works and what makes it special?
Okay. Now we should have some video in there. Yeah. So this is a tell me. Oh, it feels a little funky. So this is one of the premier tournaments in Age of Empires 2. It's been going on for years and years and years. And the last version of this was a couple years ago, so the hype for this one has been amazing. And the gimmick is that all the pro players in the game actually are playing. I may have to get out of the game and restart it. I don't know why they would remove
Oh,
the
there is a
pause
huge villager
functionality.
fight happening down in the southern.
Um, oh, uh, the gimmick of the tournament is that all the pro players actually all the pro players play under names of historical heroes. So in the semifinals here, this set is Vasco da Gama, right, the Portuguese explorer, versus Gajah, who is a name that's I would bet not that familiar to many of our viewers. Certainly was not familiar to me before the tournament, but he was apparently not even a Malaysian king, but more like a Malaysian prime minister. And there's a cool historical video on T90's channel about him. Apparently, he went on. He made at one point during his career, he made a vow that he would not eat any food with spices until he accomplished his political goals, which is, just kind of a fun historical tidbit. So all of these heroes are real historical people, with the exception of one who's a cheat code, but that's a different story. Um, all of them are real historical figures that are playing in this tournament, concealing the identities of pro players. And so there's sort of several fun sort of aspects to that for viewers. One is that you get to guess who the players are. Another is that you have to guess. You actually don't know who it is who's playing in each game. And so you have to watch how they play, guess from their gameplay, etc. Let me switch back. You guess from their gameplay, etc., to try to figure out who it is that is playing. And so that ends up being a lot of fun for all concerned. By the way, I just want to acknowledge Nate Cuss in the chat says, the crossover I never knew I wanted. Oh man, so glad. It's a little bit, it might seem a little bit strange. This might seem outside of myself and Joseph's wheelhouse, but I think the more you watch, the more it will become apparent, like, oh no, this actually makes a lot of sense. There's a lot of sort of like interesting, deep, fascinating things about the game. As I restart my game, 300% Procasters here.
One thing that you just mentioned that I think is absolutely fascinating is that you can identify players by their ways of playing, right?
Yeah.
That speaks to how much complexity there is in the game, that you can read personality, that there's different ways to accomplish the same ends, that it's not solved to the point where everybody ends up looking kind of the same. There's a lot of flavor and a lot of nuance to it. I think Doubt is the player who people are most confident they've identified in this tournament so far, just because he's very unique. I think you were saying it was the Korean cavalry archers that gave it away.
That was the giveaway for me. There were many others. There were many others as well. It's like an elephant going down Main Street, right? Like you cannot miss it. You cannot misunderstand it. There's one other player also, I would say, that people in general are highly, highly confident about. And that is, I have to manipulate more settings. I truly, it is what it is, unfortunately. Sorry, I was saying there's one other player that I think many many viewers are highly confident about. He actually lost yesterday. His hero name was, what was it? It was Otto the Great, the Holy Roman Emperor. And I think many people also felt like he was highly identifiable, and that he was a player known as MBL, who has a very distinct and chaotic play style. And you can probably hear my gameplay blasting. And so we're going to switch over, and
I think Discord is doing a really good job of tuning that noise out.
I dare to say that we're in. So we're going to be kind of blasting through this and kind of watch things. So this is a map. One of the other distinctive things about oh dear. You know what? I'm going to keep casting it like this. I'm going to switch between games. Okay. One of the other very distinctive things about this tournament is the maps. The maps, many of the maps are custom made by the tournament host, specifically for this tournament. And that ends up creating a really fascinating dynamic. He's able to craft maps that have a lot of strategic complexity. And he does that intentionally. The host, T90Official, does that intentionally. He crafts maps that have a lot of strategic trade-offs. Strategic trade-offs that make it so that players can go for multiple viable strategies. Just like the multiple viable play styles. So on this map, you start on this sort of central island here. You start here and you start here. And there are limited resources on this island. There's some fish surrounding, so you can dock and fish. But ultimately, you have to, and hence the name, evacuate to this mainland area where there are extra resources. There's sort of free food in the form of hunt, berries. There's wood, there's stone and gold, very important resources. As we watch a tower fight going on here. I think I'm behind where you are, Joseph, so I'm gonna have to just sort of cast what's happening. Vasco da Gama, I'm surprised that he's lower in the Vil count right now, which is up here. You have your Vil count and your army count for each player. Vasco da Gama, whoever he is, and we think we know who he is, but whoever he is an unspeakably sharp, precise player. He's terrifying. He's got to be one of the favorites to win the whole thing. And that's been obvious as Vasco goes in with archers, harassing, threatening. Looks like he's evened up the Vil count, so the damage is great. This looks like a great start. On water, they're sparring. It looks like both have some fishing ships still in play. Apologize, I'm hopping all over the place. Things will calm down in a second as we see kind of what's going on. I know we can't possibly be at lifetime, but I think we're just going to have to kind of cast it and go through. Okay, so things have slowed down for me. I'm at about 23 minutes on the in-game timer, Joseph. I'm not sure where you're at.
23:21.
Oh, well then we must be at live time. Perfect. Okay, so here we are. Vasco da Gama playing as the Armenians. The Armenians are a civ that focuses on archers and infantry, and then they also have some eco bonuses that end up being quite helpful, including this unique sort of thing called a mule cart, which allows you to collect resources in a unique way. Then we've got Gajamata playing as the Byzantines. The Byzantines are sort of the ultimate flexible civ. They've always got a good option. And there's a saying about Byzantines that people hate. Yeah, they're very defensive. And there's a saying among pro players that people hate to play as Byzantines, and people hate to play against Byzantines. Okay, as we see Vasco da Gama come here with the villagers, trying to defend his tower. Go ahead.
The Byzantines thing is interesting. So you mentioned the strategic complexity that's introduced by the maps. Mm-hmm. The maps have different resources in them. There are 4 resources that you need to be tracking at any given time, with kind of a 5th one. You've got wood, you've got food, you've got gold, and you've got stone. And different things that you build require different ingredients, essentially, to make. Most of the people that you're going to make need food to be made. If you're making archers, that gets switched into wood and gold are the key things. If you're making ships, again, it's wood and gold. Generally speaking, any unit that requires gold in its construction is stronger than one that does not. But in the strategic complexity that's added by choosing a civilization to play as, you get bonuses. There are some technologies that are locked for one civilization and not another. And so with the Byzantines specifically, they have bonuses that allow them to be very, very good at defense, but they struggle to push. It's difficult to gain territory. It's only really, really effective to resist. So actually getting a victory is difficult, but preventing the other guy from winning is eased.
Yeah.
Based on what they are given.
You're able to buy a lot of time to get yourself into a good position, and that's something that I think Gajamata has to do. Vasco da Gama was able to get up to the Castle Age 3, a little bit faster than Gajamata, and that opens up some new options like knights, units that are strong in small numbers, and those looks like they're diving in. They've driven Gajamata off the gold, harassing here. They have quite a bit of resistance to arrows, quite a bit of pierce armor down here in the stats. They're on 2 plus 1 from the armor upgrade, and so they're kind of able to dive under these TCs, harass, and force idle time. You can see Gajamata's worker efficiency. Actually, Vasco da Gama's is not that great either, but Gajamata's worker efficiency is suffering. He has to garrison the villagers inside the TC to protect them. And that puts Vasco da Gama in a great position here, right? As long as those villagers are idle, if they're not collecting resources, it's going to be difficult. But it's a little easier for Byzantines. One of their advantages is that they get there are several unit lines that they get at a discount. Those include the camels, the skirmishers, and the spears, and so he's able to go into camels
that are down on the mainland.
Yeah, okay, so the play from Gajamata is, all right, I'm going to build another town center that will let me produce more villagers. I'm going to slow down the game. I'm going to resist. I'm going to defend. I'm going to use those Byzantine bonuses of cheaper counter units to just kind of hang on, hang in the game, survive until I can get some stronger options, survive until I can get a stronger eco. He's up 6 villagers. That is not bad. And it looks like he's fully won water. Real fast, I just want to point out, he's fully won water.
Yeah,
he's going to be able to fish, in relative safety, which will be a great help to his eco. Sorry, go ahead.
Absolutely. So he's taken control of the water. He's destroyed the dock, and it all looks like almost all the ships from the blue player, Vasco da Gama. So Gajamata is taking care of the water and has got a second base built where the first one was getting harassed so heavily. It still is. Mm-hmm. The town center is a keyly important building. This is the one that produces your villagers, and your villagers are the only units in the game that are able to collect resources. They are also kind of squishy. They're easy to kill. So a lot of the strategy of the game is cutting off your opponent's access to resources to the point where they cannot continue to fight, essentially bombing Dresden, as it were.
Yeah, no, and this is something interesting, is technically the standards for the game are you have to destroy every military building and every military unit. But players, nearly always resign long before that. They resign as soon as they're in a position where they say, look, I don't believe I can come back from this position. And Gajamata is kind of struggling in that respect. You can see he was driven completely off of his gold. He's got 0 on gold. That's a real issue. And this stone here is not safe. It's kind of a little bit of a desperation move. Vasco da Gama, like I said, he is a strong player. And I love, by the way, what you pointed out, Joseph, that and he builds a tower to try to push away the archers, try to defend this gold a little bit. I don't know how effective that's really going to be, but it's something at least. The game is all about the split between, when I say all about, in large part it's about the split between military units and economy, right? The resources that you spend building that second town center and producing more villagers to get that lead are resources that you can't put into military production. So you can see, like, Vasco da Gama, and I know it's not hard to see from the numbers, he has a much scarier military. But if Gajamata can hold on, if that's the right strategic choice, if he can hold on a little bit longer, maybe he can mass up enough camels to take a good fight. He can get the skirmishers in there to take a good fight. He can take advantage of that. He's 18 villagers ahead. That's a great position to be in, as long as you can survive long enough for that eco to kick in. And you can probably see that in the res collected. Actually, it's higher for Vasco da Gama. Gajamata is still playing catch up. Ooh, I don't know, and I don't know about this fight either. I don't love that. I think the Knights could probably take that fight alone. That is a bad fight for Gajamata. Oof. But maybe it's okay, right? The Byzantines get cheaper camels, right? If you can keep trading cheaply and stay in the game, who knows what can happen with that res collected, and that's going to start climbing quite a bit for Gajamata, and I think he's going to catch up soon. As long as he can survive. That is the key question here. Can you stay alive? Stay alive.
Staying alive.
And that's kind of the name of the game for Byzantines, right? They're just, which is true for the historical Byzantine Empire, right? You just got to stay alive. You just hang in there. Hang in there as long as you can.
Yeah, we've got some interesting monk play happening down by Vasco da Gama's coast, where monks are starting to steal ships. Monks can convert enemy units. It takes time to do that, and monks are very, very easy to kill. So it's a dangerous strategy, but if you are successful, when you steal the opponent's unit, you've just taken all those resources. You've subtracted resources from your opponent and gained resources yourself. It's a very, very efficient way to play.
It's a swingy way to play too, right? Like, here's an interesting question in strategy, generally, all games, but also life, right? Is like, if you're ahead, is it just easier to get ahead? Like, can somebody who's behind play catch up, right? Like, economically, when we talk about like income mobility, that's one of the things that we're dealing with, right? Like, is if you're behind in income. By the way, we talked about how
we've got a bunch of. We've got a wall that's capturing these camels in the south.
Oh, where? Oh my gosh!
Out of building.
I missed the quick wall. Yep. Vasco da Gama, great catch. Yeah, I wasn't there. I was looking at something else, unfortunately. Right, I'm blind. But trap there. Now those camels, one gets converted. Big oof there. And I said, by the way, those are all going to be useless now. They can't even get out. They're physically trapped in. I was going to say, right, we saw Gajamata go up to the second town center first to expand his economy, and he's up on a third. But Vasco da Gama is what we call in the game a boomer. He's playing heavy eco. He's expanding his eco. He's on 4 TCs. So I think, I thought Gajamata needed to hang in there until he could get his eco to be, truly superior. But the villager gap is closing. Vasco da Gama, I think he's going to stay ahead on res collected.
On the home island, there's a lot of Vasco da Gama is moving villagers forward. It looks like he's probably going to do a castle drop.
Happening status it is. He's got the stone, and it drops. Right, just like in history, right? You lay down castles to secure positions, and this is going to secure. I don't know how good of a castle it is. Here are the pros and cons, right? It will close off this gold from Gajamata, but Gajamata has gold, and it will take out the tower. Gajamata is still taking gold elsewhere, so I think that's not so bad. What's really bad, I think, is that if you look at the resources, he's getting real close to the amount, or not real close, but he looks like he's angling to get the resources necessary to click up to the next age. And when you click up to the next age, you get all kinds of new units and technologies that will allow you to do more damage, particularly from your castle. So I see that as a forward castle that, yes, it locks down the gold, but it's also this forward position that's going to ultimately threaten and remove this entire home base. So it ends up being a really good thing for Gajimata that he has evacuated.
Gajimata is doing a castle in the south, and this one is much more directly threatening a town center.
You drop a castle on me, I'll drop a castle on you. Good eye, yeah.
And a more effective one at that. This one is controlling stone, gold, and it's going to take out the town center.
Yeah, and it denies all those farms, which is nice too.
And if he puts the villagers in it, the range will extend to the point where he can take out the tower as well.
I think, well, he'll need the upgrades for the range. You know, the nice thing is, if I were Gajimata, I would be tempted to slap all those, let's see, 10 villagers on gold there, and use the market to buy my way to Imperial Age. And speaking of Imperial Age, Vasco da Gama is already up. And that is not a good sign for our Malaysian friend, Gajimata. He may not be eating spiced foods for a very, very, very long time in accordance with his vow, because I don't know if he's going to reach his political goals in this game. It's looking... it's looking dicey. Okay. It's looking dicey. What do you do? What do you do if you're Gajimata? I don't know.
Heavy emphasis on gold.
Yeah, and he did kind of, well, he's slapping everyone on stone.
Behind that southern castle.
Yeah. And Vasco da Gama is putting up a castle to protect this area. Can Gajimata deny this castle? Is he going to see that in time? Can the camels deny it? I don't think they can ultimately deny it, but I think they can slow it down. Something interesting about camels, and true for most counter units in the game, is that they're very good at countering the sort of strong mainline unit that they counter, but they're sort of bad at doing normal things. And so they're kind of struggling to take out these villagers. They don't have much attack. And the castle does go up, and that protects that whole position. And Vasco da Gama is just going to build trebs, probably, try to take out that strong Byzantine castle. So, full disclosure, I'm cheering for Gajimata. I am. I don't mean to be biased, but I am. And so, right now, I'm racking my brains trying to figure out. I think he might be. I think he is. And as he clicks up, so he'll be a little bit behind, but he'll be up to Imp 2.
Vasco da Gama's got a castle that he's building close to that crossing, that ford down in the lower area. So he's going to take control of the water through the arrows that are going to be shot by that castle. Boats do not do well against the arrows from castles, particularly if you research a technology in the university called heated shot. And I believe both of these players get access to heated shot. Is that correct?
Probably. It's not a super common tech, and so I'm not very familiar. But I think nearly all civs get it. As Vasco dives, and it looks like
has destroyed that town center.
Yep. And now he'll come over with the knights.
The northern base is essentially empty. The only exception I've got is this tiny little wood camp that is not going to last much longer.
He is fully evacuated, as the map goes.
And the attack is pressing forward. Strange. We've got composite bowmen and knights chasing group camels.
Yeah, this is really bad for Gajimata. All of that eco is threatened. It's all on the run. I don't know how he's going to fight off this army. He's only got 6 camels. He's teching into crossbows. Right, he built all these archery ranges. Yeah, he's behind the 8 ball here. And this is such a good find. There were trebuchets here, but the Mangonel took out one of them.
We've got a tiny little raid happening in the back from Gajimata, but it's not very effective. He's down to 1 camel and it's about to die.
Yeah, that's
not working.
Okay, in a second, when we get out of this...
taking out that castle. Trebuchets are castle killers. Castles are incredibly strong until they're not. There's a couple of units that just end them very quickly. Mm-hmm. Normal units, swords and knives, generally speaking, do not work on castles very effectively. But if you bring trebuchets have longer range, so they can attack while being safe themselves. And it doesn't take that many shots to completely destroy a castle.
That's kind of... Sorry.
sometimes you end up with what we call a treb war, where you have one set of trebuchets trying to destroy a castle and another trebuchet that's essentially trying to destroy the attacking trebuchets. And there are civilization bonuses that can make that advantaged one way or the other.
Mm-hmm. Byzantines
have
a great bonus there where they get extra HP on they get extra hit points on their castles, right? A nod to the historical resilience of Byzantium and the walls surrounding Constantinople. But yep, the castle has gone down. Vasco da Gama has 4 trebuchets. The crossbows here are going to maybe be able to defend. Vasco da Gama is going into light cav though, heavy, and
we had a trebuchet hit against the crossbows. That was violent.
Absolutely blasted. Just domed. What is
hard to do?
90 kilograms
are not exactly accurate when
90 kilograms over 300 meters. Is that it? Just blasted from the sky.
Just yeeted.
And the harassment is getting cleaned up on Gajimata's base, but I think the damage is done. And the light cav are flooding in, and the composite bowmen are behind. And I'm not optimistic here. As the treb goes down, the light cav dive. That is not enough crossbows, I don't think. And I don't want to call it, but I think we're going to see I think we have to see the GG soon. You never usually players will wait until they've got less than 100 total population. So Gajimata might hang in a second longer, but this castle, even
pressing forward, we've got the trebuchets attacking, and we've been losing some very expensive units from Gajimata.
Even the walls of Constantinople cannot resist the Armenian advance. They can't. I don't think.
We've got Suleiman the Magnificent here, not Vasco.
Yeah. As the castle's, it's almost gone.
Markets really choke.
Oh boy.
The actual fall of Constantinople in the mid-1300s was a horrifically brutal affair. There were so many people taken into slavery at one time that the price of slaves dropped like a rock because of that old supply and demand. Absolutely one of those historical tragedies that's kind of hard to imagine the scale of today.
Yeah, it's like, I mean, it's hard to imagine the scale of. Like, our only point of reference is probably like the COVID pandemic, and the GGs come in, and Vasco da Gama.
The GG is a tradition in playing Age of Empires that when you end a game or resign, it's traditional to enter via your keyboard in the chat, GG, standing for good game. One of the things that I really, really love about the Age of Empires 2 community is that it's shockingly polite. You get a little salt occasionally, but for the most part, it's reasonably mature people who are interested in a historical strategy game. And the tradition is to say things like GG for good game, or WP for well played, or what are some of the other acronyms?
The number of times that when I see, and this has happened so many times in this tournament, when somebody loses the set, and they'll add a GL next, good luck next, right? Like, everybody in the community just wishes each other well. Part of it is because the community was so small for so long that everybody knows each other, and they're good friends, and I hope it stays that way, even as the game comes back and expands. Right, Peter G comments in the chat, I played the free demo of the original, had no idea it was still around. Same, man. One of the first tournaments I watched was in about 2018, which was one of the previous editions of Hidden Cup 2, which was an absolute banger. And I was similarly surprised. I was like, what? This game that I played on like an old, Windows 98 computer is still around? What? And it is. And it's fairly strong and fairly healthy, and the community is probably one of the most civilized and respectful gaming communities in the world, if we're being honest.
That's amazing. It's not like Fortnite. And part of that actually might be a selection bias with the age of the average player. This is, we all were introduced to this game as teenagers probably, but we're not exactly teenagers anymore. Mm-hmm. So there's a lot of players who are in their 20s, 30s, 40s who are, playing this the way people in previous generations used to play chess.
Yeah, actually, that's a fun comparison. I do think it is a very chess-like game, maybe even more than chess. I mean, it's far more sophisticated than chess. And I think that's one of the reasons it's endured so well, is just And I apologize, there's going to be a little bit of background noise as I tweak some settings here in the background. But I think one of the reasons that it's endured is the sheer complexity of the game, the sheer complexity of the counter, the rock, paper, scissors system. So many units, so many civs, each similar, but also distinct enough that it matters. They're similar enough that you can kind of pick up any civ and play it almost like any other civ. For instance, in that game, we saw Vasco da Gama open with not Byzantine, Armenian knights. Like, knights are not Armenian specialty, but, they can make them. And it's a strong unit. And so will you tech into it long term? Probably not. But can you use it? Yeah. And, many of the civs and units are like that, where they have specialties, but they're still flexible. Which, in some ways, Joseph, I think is an ideal for both you and me, isn't it? Specialties,
I
but
agree.
flexible.
I agree.
Outside of Age of Empires 2, sort of broadly in line.
Yeah, I think both of those are high value. One of the things I really like about that structure, so if you compare this to another strategy game such as Red Alert 2 or StarCraft 2, in those ones, the civilizations or the teams that you get to play as, the factions, are so radically different that you have to learn each one completely from scratch. But in the Age of Empires 2 game ecosystem, each one of these civilizations that you can play have essentially the same technology tree, just with some branches pruned and with some unique bonuses attached to their version of knights or their version of archers. So you have, a couple of broad classes of characters, but if you played as a particular civilization, you can jump in and reasonably know what you're doing and identify what you're looking at. Occasionally, you'll run into surprises, like you play as the Huns the first time and you realize you don't actually need to build houses. That's quite a treat.
Yeah, paradoxically, I could tell you about some of the ways that weakens Huns, although it also strengthens them, which is another thing, right? Is that there are trade-offs. There are trade-offs. There just are.
Yeah.
As I believe there.
Normally, as you're playing the game, in the Huns example, you need to build houses in order to have room to build new units. So there's a cap on how many units you can have at any given time based on how many houses you have. So it's frequent that people will run into a situation where they are pop capped or housed, where they haven't built enough houses and they need more units, but they can't build them right now, so they frantically build a house or two or three. And where the Huns never need to build houses, a reference to their historically nomadic culture, that's very helpful. But another thing people use houses for as they're playing the game is to build a kind of temporary high-strength wall. And if you don't have access to that technology and you were anticipating needing it to build a wall, that could be a nasty surprise.
Okay. So I'm going to put the map draft on the board. It looks like they're either in or about into the next game. And I'm going to step away for 30 seconds. Let's see. Hang on, drafting. Let's see if we can get this properly. Okay.
I'm seeing this game listed as R2. Is that round 2? I believe we saw one of those already just a moment ago.
I'm not sure, but I do know it's the next one because it's a new map. So I'm going to leave this on civs for a second, and I'll be back in 30 seconds, and we will hop into the game.
Perfect. Could you briefly overview the score at the moment? I believe it's 2 for Vasco da Gama at this point. Is that correct? And this is 2 out of 7.
Right now, I only have to work around things. Okay, I think I'm back. I apologize. Advantage. I played a lot of Warcraft 3, Peter G says. Again, only computer opponents. I feel like it's an advantage against various weeks. Okay, all right. Let's hop into game 2 between Gajah Mada and Vasco da Gama. Vasco da Gama is up 1 game. And actually, as we hop in, now might be a decent time to talk a little bit about player guesses, right? Obviously, right here we are seeing historical figures, the Portuguese explorer Vasco da Gama, and the Malaysian statesman, prime minister sort of position is what I understand it to be, Gajah Mada. And it looks like, oh, I need to download the custom files. So who are the players behind these names? And the two guesses right now that are running around the community most are that Vasco da Gama is a player named Hera, as we hop in. Oops. As we hop in, that Vasco da Gama is a player named Hera, and that Gajah Mada is a player named Tato. And Vasco da Gama has been tearing his way through the bracket, just absolutely destroying everything. He won, I think, the first set in the round of 16 4-1. He won the second set, I think, 4-0. Right now, Hera is probably the best player in the world, and that's why people are thinking that Vasco da Gama has probably got to be Hera. He's a player who's very well balanced, good at everything, very good on the defense, very good economic expansion behind aggression, and very good at controlling units. He's really, I mean, and this is what you need to be the best. He's just kind of good at everything. Very talented player. Gajah Mada, we think, is probably a player named Tato. He's from Spain. And he's known as a strategic genius. He's known as somebody, he cooks up a lot of really fascinating strategies. He's also a very good player, but I think he's better known for sort of his strategy than his execution. Okay. Which creates a really interesting dynamic between the two players, right? You expect Vasco da Gama, playing here as the Teutons, to sort of be a little bit sharper with the unit control, a little bit better execution. But you look at Gajah Mada, who's picked one of Tato's favorite civs, the Saracens, incredibly flexible civ with some bonuses that make it even more flexible. And you start thinking, okay, what has Gajah Mada cooked up, right? Like, you know, what kind of strategy has he labbed out to beat opponents that might be, in some respects, better than him? And that's, I guess, a question that we'll have. Do you mind if I talk about the map a little bit? I know I've just been droning on.
Yes, please.
Okay.
This is wishbone shape in the middle.
Also affectionately known as the Bat Map, but the official name is Hidden Forts, right? And so what you've got with Hidden Forts is you've got this thin wood line, and if you chop through it, as Vasco da Gama has in order to get these boars, which is tons of free food that you can collect very quickly, so that should give him a nice little boost. He's collected 2 boars, and he blocks the boar with a foundation. What a right, absolute nerd, absolute micro nerd. That's that unit control, that precision. But if you chop through, and then you chop through the other side, then you can directly go at your opponent's base instead of having to go around the outside edges. But you can also go around the outside edges. And in the middle, you've got, like I said, these extra boars that you can collect free food from. That's a possible boost. And you've got these large clumps of gold, very useful. But that's not the only option, because if you go on the outside edge, you've got stone. That's an important resource if you want to lay down castles. You've got more wood. That's helpful. You've also got free food in the form of berries and hunt. You've got more gold, and you've also got the relics, which give you a small trickle of gold long-term over the course of the whole game. So it really is, this is one of the maps that T90 designed specifically for the tournament, and it matches exactly the kind of thing that T90 tries to do with these maps, which is he tries to create maps that give you a lot of options where there's not just one way to play it. And that allows players, particularly because of the hidden nature of the tournament, they can cook up strategies that no one has ever seen before. And so we'll see what they're doing. And it looks like Vasco da Gama's strategy is, okay, I'm going to bring in a third boar from the middle. I'm going to get disgusting amounts of free food. And then I wonder, Teutons have a strong siege monk play, which is immobile but strong, and I just kind of wonder if maybe he'll try to chop through and drive straight up the gut. That's a possibility. As Gajah Mada, it looks like, he's not even opting to chop the middle. He's saying, look, I'm not going to chop the middle. I'm going to sit back. I'm probably going to try to send aggression around the sides, or maybe even just boom up on the sides, take this to late game, and see what my options are. So I guess we'll see. We'll see what happens next as both players get to the feudal age. We'll see what their strategies are.
We've got a wall being constructed out of regular buildings, trying to protect this area by Gajamada. And Gajamada has been using the scout cavalry to push the huntable animals. We've got the zebras on this map to push them. These deer are programmed so that they run away from whatever unit's closest to them. And players have discovered that if you place a fast unit behind them, you can kind of steer them in the direction you want them. And that makes it so that your villagers have to walk a much shorter distance, take much less time in order to collect that resource.
I just want to comment. One of the coolest things about this game is that there are many things that players do in this game that were not planned by the developers. And it's interesting to listen to some of the interviews from developers and hear how they're surprised how people play the game. Nobody thought that, I'm confident that when the game was developed, nobody thought about pushing deer. Instead, they thought, oh, you'll come out. We call zebras deer in the game. They thought you'll go out, you'll build a mill to take the food from the deer, right? But no, instead players are like, I'm going to send my scout out. I'm going to push the deer, lure the deer back to the, kind of herd the wild animals back to my town center. And so, I think that's another really neat thing about the game. And it's also true in life is, right, like a lot of success comes from finding options that were not intended, but that are sort of hidden in the game. As Rolobio says, you're making me want to play this again, hoping my young kids can play soon. Man, we could spend time talking about sort of the family side to Age of Empires 2. It's so common for people to say that people were introduced by their parents or by their brothers. I'm almost in that category. I was introduced by a friend who played with his dad. I think that's great. And Quinn Kirkham says, "Let's go Teutons." Yep. Quinn is your brother-in-law, Joseph, as you obviously know, but he loves playing as Teutons, which is a great.
He's also very, very, very good at it. Like very good at it. What's your castle time, Quinn? Something like 14 minutes?
Yeah, he does do that fast castle into 2 stable knights quite effectively. As
a lot of the strategies are common enough that they have names. One of the things that's interesting, you mentioned the deer pushing, and I want to focus on that really briefly and then make a quick comment about the family aspect of the play of this game. When you're pushing deer, that is a thing that's technical, and one of the most precious resources in this game is your attention. You're only able to look at one thing at a time. You're only able to click in one area at a time. And so there's a sequence of choices, and you need to essentially ration them. If you're going to push deer, doing that effectively requires you to very carefully and precisely manage where typically your scout is. And doing that requires a lot of attention. We call that micro. But whenever you're investing that much attention in the micro of something, it's easy to lose track of the macro side of the play. And then you have things like villagers who aren't actually collecting any resource or buildings that aren't actually making anything. So being able to click back and forth and balance what you're paying attention to and what you're not is a huge part of the game.
Yeah.
One other thing to mention briefly about the family play. I have 3 kids who are old enough to play the game, and this is something that we will occasionally do on a Sunday afternoon. I will pull out 2 laptops and we'll sit at the kitchen table and play a game against some robots, and it's been really fun to be able to, share this forward 25 years after the game was initially developed.
Because you said
also.
Sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say, because you said that, Joseph, I have to say what Rolobio just said in the chat. My family had a rule of no video games on Sunday, but my dad would play AoE on Sunday and say that it was okay because he was using a priest to convert people.
I love that.
That's
fantastic.
Quick game update. Vasco da Gama as the Teutons has gone up on 4 TCs. So it is, what we call the Omega boom, right? He's going heavy into eco. And I think we've seen the strategy. When people started playing this map, they both cut through the wood lines and then fight in the middle. But I think right now, sort of the way people play it is shifting. And instead, and Vasco da Gama did this, I believe, in the last round, and I think he's going to do it again, he's going to build a huge economy. He's going to go to Imperial Age. He's going to research a unit called the Onager that can cut through trees instantly. He's going to cut through these trees and then he's going to flood military through and destroy Gajamata. And so I think that's what he's going to go for. And so you can kind of like, I am looking into the future. That is what is going to happen over the course of the next 20 minutes. And I am just thinking, what is Gajamata going to do against that? He's on 3 TCs. He's on 3 TCs, so he's booming up as well. But he is behind in the eco count.
Not fast enough.
He's a full 15 villagers behind. He was slower to the castle age. He's slower on the boom. And I'm just like, what are you cooking, my friend? What have you got going? Because you need to do something. Because Vasco da Gama is coming straight for the jugular. But excuse me, I shouldn't say he's coming straight for the jugular. He's booming up. And then he will come straight for the jugular. He's waiting. He's cooking.
If I had to guess, if I were Gajamata in this particular situation, I would essentially write off this lower town center, the one that's in kind of this ring of trees. I think that one is initially going to get cut and it's going to get destroyed. And then this wall of houses and buildings that he's got behind, I would strengthen that as essentially a second layer of defense. I've noticed that he's taken both of the new town centers and moved them quite a bit further away from the first ones, and also split them in 2 different directions. I think he's planning to start fighting a defensive game soon.
Yep.
And I see outposts going up. These are towers that allow you to see.
Yeah.
Normally there's a fog of war that prevents you from seeing anywhere where your units are not. But these towers give you a view over the trees, as it were. Mm-hmm. I think he wants to see when and where the cut is coming, but I think he knows that.
And this is really
time
good.
Is limited in this lower base.
He knows what's going on here. He knows that eventually Vasco da Gama is playing super passive, no military. He's just sitting back and booming, and then at some point he's going to come in with like just the wickedest, most powerful cross you can imagine. And so Gajamata has to gear up for that. Now, and you pointed out he's spreading out.
We've already got
He's getting harder to kill, right? By spreading out. He's on his
villager count
as well.
The villager count is now even worse than it was before. We've got now 4 town centers from each player, but our blue player, Vasco da Gama, had 4 town centers, each of them producing villagers first, and so now he's 20 villagers ahead.
Yeah.
And those, of course, there's a, what do you call that, a logarithmic increase in how much you're able to produce.
Yeah.
With every new villager, you gain resources more quickly. With more resources, you can gain more villagers, and it starts to scale very, very quickly. A 20 villager difference is enormous.
And so I told everyone in the last game, I'm cheering for Gajamata because I think it's Tato and I love Tato as a player. But I fear for his life. Vasco da Gama, right, those cheap Teuton farms, he's almost got the resources to click up to the Imperial Age. You need 1,000 food, 800 gold. He's got it. He's going to be clicking up in 2 seconds as soon as he finishes the required building. That's the siege workshop. Maybe he also needs
stone. Not planning to do any castles then.
He needs the monastery here. Yep, and that's it. Yep, no stone. But he's got the 2 buildings. He clicks up.
I've got a question for you.
Yeah, go
Over
ahead.
on the right, we've got from Gajamata, we've got a town center that is trying to hack at that tree line in the middle. To me, that looks like an extremely vulnerable, extremely bad place to be. What are your thoughts there?
Well, I think he knows. Gajamata probably knows, look, it's going to be the onager cut. So it kind of doesn't matter if I chop through. I mean, I do agree in principle, but like, do you want to chop this through and sort of like do Vasco da Gama's work for him? Probably not. But ultimately it may not. It may not. And you can also stonewall that.
Vasco da Gama's going to respond with a tower there because he just purchased 200 stone at the market. Whenever you can use the market to purchase new resources, right? So if you build a market that allows you to trade your food for gold, and gold is the common resource that you use for all these trades. However, the rate at which you're able to trade them is typically really inefficient. And it becomes increasingly inefficient the more you use it.
Okay.
Down to the point where you can sell 100 wood for only 14 gold.
As Gajamata clicks up, he's got the resources. Oh, he's lacking the buildings. And this is fascinating. I just want to point out, this is super interesting. He's building a castle. If Vasco da Gama had a castle, he would be able to tread that down. But he doesn't have a castle. Oh, but he bought the stone. He's going to put down a castle. And he's going into triple monastery. So it is going to be heavy monk play. He's already got the mangonel queued up. It's going to be onager to cut, heavy monk play, trebs from this castle. And I'm thinking, and Gajamata, he's still cooking. He's going into bloodlines for the cavalry. He's going into sanctity to help his monks. And I think he's going to counter with Monk Lightcap, I suppose. And I don't know how he's reading that, because Lightcap is the counter to Monks. He doesn't see these monasteries, but he's teching into, I think, the right thing. And there's hope in my soul for Gajimata. He might be able to do this. He might be able to. He's behind in the Imperial Age. He's got a weaker economy. I've got hope.
We've got Vasco da Gama preparing to be invaded. One of the problems if you cut through a natural barrier like that tree line is that the door opens both ways.
Yep.
And so I'm noticing that where the castle is, he's also creating a barrier of buildings across this area designed to protect that gold behind and basically prepare to be invaded after he opens up that invasion point.
Yeah.
We've got some good research happening from Vasco da Gama trying to make his monks more powerful. We've got block printing and illumination, which are going to make it so that he can capture more, extend the range of his monks so that they can convert from a larger distance. And then, if I'm not mistaken, illumination. What is it that illumination gives?
I'm not a monk player, and so I get them confused, but I believe it reduces the time that you have to wait for to do another conversion. As the Treb comes out, the castle's under threat. Yep.
Already a third of its health gone. Two shots have hit. Now half of its health is gone.
And Gajimata
repairs happening. Oh, now I do.
Gajimata is repaired.
Frantic effort trying to repair this. We've got a whole bunch of villagers no longer working on collecting resources, instead frantically working on repairing that castle. And then we have two of these trebuchets taking it down. That castle's going down. Next shots, it's gone. It's donezo.
One more.
Not quite.
They're
going to keep it alive for one more round of shots.
We're still playing the BGs. Let's be Bimaristan. We're not going to talk about that, but that's kind of an interesting move. I'll talk about it if I can figure out what to say about it. I'm just surprised to see it. It's kind of
now this castle is doing nothing productive, and it's taking an enormous amount of resources in order to try to save it, and it's not going to be saved. It's going down.
What it is, well, I mean, it's not even slowing down the push that much. I don't know. As Onager comes in, he's going to be able to cut. Gajimata is sending in the Lightcap to raid. I really like that, because this push down the middle from Vasco da Gama is going to be so terrifying. It's going to be so strong. And Gajimata is saying, okay, fine, but I'm going to slow you down. I'm going to harass you on the side with these Lightcap. I'm going to make you react. Look, the Onagers, instead of cutting, they're, chasing these Lightcap that might be able to dive, and the quick wall comes in. The quick wall comes in, blocks out the Lightcap, and the Lightcap might even be converted. One of them is. The other will dive through and still be able to harass.
That's a difficult feat. Lightcap are extremely resistant to monks. I don't know if you've noticed, but Gajimata is also doing a tremendous amount of research into monk technologies. So he's planning to respond with monks as well. We're going to have monk v monk war. We had a technology research that, if I'm not mistaken, makes it so that any unit converted by the Teutons will actually die instead of switching sides.
I will take your word for it, because I did not see it. But Paladin is coming in for Vasco da Gama too. Stupid strong.
Paladins.
Now, he's only going to have about 20 of them, and his eco is kind of set up for Paladin. Oh! Are we going to get the conversion? And the cut comes in? Convert? The conversion's got to come in. It's got to come in. It's going to come in, right? And one conversion comes in. Yep.
Trebuchet is not very accurate, trying to trebuchet down those poor monks. And we've got a monk being attacked by a knight. Knights are very, very susceptible to monks. Very religious, those knights.
I still favor Vasco da Gama's position. But I think Gajimata is doing all the right things. He's teching into the right units. He's slowed down the push. Vasco da Gama wasn't able to instantly cut through. Oh, you're right. There's something funky going on with the screen. Stall for me, Joseph, while I try to correct that.
Currently, we've got 3 trebuchets that have been moved through that cut, and we've got a flood of paladins and monks that are also controlling the area. Those trebuchets are going to take down that town center, and they're going to do it quickly. Meanwhile, we've got a castle also from Vasco da Gama attacking that town center that I was a little bit iffy about, that was too close to the wood line in the center. So we're going to have 2 town centers destroyed in the next moments. Meanwhile, we've got knights running rampant. but Gajimata is responding to the knights by sending in camels, which are an anti-cavalry unit and are fast and very good at killing camels, but there's just not enough of them.
Yeah.
We've got a flood of the villagers
Yeah.
from around that town center fleeing for their lives, trying to
The,
retain some of that economic potential.
the
We've
funny
got
thing is,
cavalry archers from Gajimata, not something I would have seen coming. And it's also not going to be enough. We have enough camels now that might be able to hold them back.
so
Meanwhile, those 3 trebuchets are unmolested and are just going to destroy every building within range.
I got to point out, if any camels could do it, it's the Saracen camels. They're some of the strongest camels in the game. I don't know if they can do it, but if any camels, they can't do it. They can't do it.
Also, they aren't fully upgraded.
They can't do it. Yeah, they're. Oh my
They
goodness.
were not fully upgraded. And there's the
The
GG.
GG comes in.
I think we saw this almost as a foregone conclusion by the time Vasco da Gama had 3 town centers in the middle.
It was tough.
We started to see that economic imbalance with the increased number of villagers.
It was. Yeah, I think. Here's the funny thing: is that Saracens have a very flexible tech tree. I think they have all the right counters for Teutons. They've got incredibly strong camels to counter the cavalry. They've got great monk play to counter the cavalry. They've got hand cannons to counter the infantry. They've got bombard cannons to counter onagers and trebs. They've got all the options, but Gajimata was just not able to get to those options because his economy was weaker. I really do think, and we weren't able to talk about it, but Gajimata, when he went up to the feudal age, he went into cavalry. He invested in military, and I don't think he got any value for it. And I think that put him behind. And Vasco da Gama got to Castle Age first, got up the town centers first, boomed up like a crazy man, was always ahead in eco. And when he got to Imp, he was able to say, all right, I'm going to go for the expensive onager upgrade because I can afford it. I'm going to go for the expensive paladin upgrade because I can afford it. And even with technically inferior units, your camels should be able to beat me. But I will be so rich that I will overwhelm you. As Napoleon said, quantity has a quality all its own, right?
Yes, indeed.
And that was true here. And for somebody, Vasco da Gama is a player who, if he is Hera, we know him most for his sort of execution, not for his strategy choices. But I think that he prevailed in this game in large part because of a strategy choice, because of a strategy to produce no military, to just wall up. You can see the walls on his starting base, right? He just, oh my goodness, I missed this during the game, I need to point out. But Vasco da Gama has this castle that looks like it was denied at 65%, but it was going up on the back of Vasco da Gama's base. That's super cheeky. But I think, Vasco da Gama, if he is Hera, known better for his execution, but flawless, exactly the right strategic decision here. And Gajimata, if he is Tato, known for his strategy decisions, but probably picked the wrong strategy here. Like you said, I don't want to say a foregone conclusion, but it felt that way a tiny bit.
Yes. Absolutely. It's interesting. I mean, if you have the right idea about how to do something, you need to have the technical ability to actually bring it into reality, or else. There's a great quote. Forgive me, I can't remember who it's from at the moment, but the quote goes, "In theory, there's no difference between theory and practice, but in practice there is."
Yep. We do love that quote, don't we?
There is some truth to that. Oh, absolutely.
I'm going to go ahead. I've got
Interesting. Tato is an extremely strong player. So if Gajimata is indeed Tato, that's not throwing shade at him. I mean, Hera is incredibly good. And incidentally, if I'm not mistaken, Hera actually has a YouTube channel where he teaches the tips and tricks on how to play this game more effectively. And also, he is available to be a consultant and to increase your proficiency at the game. He'll either play with you or observe one of your games and give you feedback for a fee. That's a thing that he does.
Yep. There are other great coaching players too, and he does Hera puts out a ton of free content to help people. Often when people pay for coaching, he'll put the videos up of him doing the coaching so that anybody can watch them. which is great. That's very good of Hera. So I've got the map draft up, and it is 2 losses for Gajamata. I just I wanted so badly, especially if he's Tato. Tato has pulled some rabbits out of hats before. I just want to point that out. He's done some extraordinary things in the past, even against players who should be better. So I don't want to say he's out in this best of 7. But going down 2-0 to a player who probably is the best player in the world right now, yeah, it don't feel good. So Gajamata needs to look at his draft. He needs to pick a good map. He needs to pick good civs. He needs to cook something up. Go ahead.
What is the current score? Is it 2-1 or is it 3-0?
I believe it is. It's 2-0, unless we missed the entirety of the first game.
We did. We
Oh, we
missed
did.
the
Okay.
entirety of the first game.
Who won the
And if
first
I'm
game?
not mistaken, it was Vasco da Gama.
Is it 3-0?
I think
Oh,
it's 3-0.
no, 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 no. Oh, that's a... Okay. Well, well, what must be going through Gajamata's head right now, right? How do I come back?
Ooh.
Do you remember what the map would have been? Probably Mudflow, right?
If I'm not mistaken, yes.
And do you happen to recall what the civs were?
I don't. I
All right, no
was
worries.
only in and out of it briefly.
I could make some good guesses, but actually I couldn't make some good guesses. It's still too distant. I'm kind of fascinated, just as a side note, that they both picked Armenians as their first draft. I think that's unexpected. And interesting. I wonder why they. It's a new civ, and I don't think it's a civ. It's a civ that has some good options, but I don't think it's been people's first pick in the rest of the tournament. So, but Vasco da Gama did win with Armenians on evacuation, so he must have thought he had a good option. And we are already into the next game. I will load that up, and it will be on islands.
Woot woot.
I've muted myself.
You
How bad is this
personally
experience?
really don't like playing on water. Could you talk a little bit about that?
No, you're getting your audio. Go ahead.
I actually don't have it on.
Oh, really?
I did a few minutes ago. I was listening to your stream. I'm glad someone said something about the radio because I had just pulled it up.
In the strategy matchup and in finding these maps, some maps have water as a major element where you have to travel between islands and worry about landing troops. And
Sorry,
in some cases,
I improperly muted myself, but I improperly failed to mute myself. I've got my brother here watching with me, and I just wanted to check and make sure that the audio was good for him and his experience, etc. But sorry, so I am here. I apologize. Continue. Sorry.
Oh yes, absolutely.
As I
So
for the 10th time today, very pro casters here.
100%. Hey, I think there's like a few cents of ad revenue for this kind of video, so I mean, technically we are professionals now. Isn't that the way that's determined?
That's
making any money out of it being a professional.
Yep, getting that 0.01 cents. So yeah, definitely.
There we go.
Okay, I'm into the game. Let me switch in. Very good.
2 islands are very close together. This is a very, very tight map. I personally like playing on maps that are absolutely enormous because it creates distance equals time. If you have a large distance between you and the enemy, you have time between the enemy making contact with you, and I tend to be defensive. Personal preference. I also just enjoy the scale. But with these smaller maps, the aggression happens a lot sooner. And one of these questions on a water map like this one is, do you put your dock on the front of your island where it's more likely to be attacked, but it's also easier for you to attack? Again, that distance is shorter in both space and time. Or do you move your dock to the back where you have a larger amount of time and therefore have perhaps a buffer and an easier time defending? And from Vasco da Gama, we've got a forward dock. From Gajamata, we've also got a forward dock. Both of them have a villager who is collecting fish. We're going to expect fishing ships to come out very quickly. There's one from Vasco da Gama. One of the advantages of a dock is that it produces this fishing ship unit, which is able to collect food, which essentially makes it like a town center. Normally, a town center is the only building that's able to construct anything that has any kind of economic utility. It's just the villagers. But you don't get a chance to make a second town center until you've reached the castle age, which is fully age number 3. But with water as an option, suddenly you can produce multiple economic units at the same time, so long as you have enough villagers collecting wood to sustain it. And that can be a huge economic advantage in these earlier stages of the game, in the Dark Age and in the Feudal Age.
Yeah, I think
both teams currently have 2 fishing ships. Both are leaning heavily into getting the food necessary to go up to the next age.
Looks like
we're going to start seeing a lot more fights as soon as we hit the Feudal Age.
Okay, I need to talk a little bit about how this map is played, because we have just seen Gajamata do a thing, and that thing matters. And that thing is coming from his docks, and it is a transport ship, right? So islands, right? You start on separate islands. There's also these 2 islands in the middle with extra resources and extra relics. So here's a question, because you would think maybe on islands, how do you fight? And you could build a navy and fight here on this water. But another thing you can do is you can build a transport ship, put units in the transport ship, and then sail them across, land on your opponent's island, and fight on land. And that is exactly what Gajamata is doing. He has got the transport ship. He's loaded up his scout. He's loaded up 2 villagers. They're using the Boy Scout buddy system
right now where the enemy is.
Yeah,
and if he's very unlucky, he will move that transport ship to an area where the opponent can see him, which it looks like exactly what's about to happen. No, we have the same strategy for Vasco da Gama. They're about to see each other with the transport ships.
This is the people passing. This is like the Spider-Man. Okay.
Oh, Vasco da Gama has changed.
Oh my goodness!
He's moving to the island.
No. What if Joseph
landing successfully?
What if he thinks this is the opponent's island? What if he thinks this is the opponent's island?
No.
Oh, he's loading back in. He knows. He knows the neutral island. He's going.
We've got a barracks being built on Vasco da Gama's island by Gajamata.
Archery range, actually. He built the barracks at home. You need a barracks first for the archery range, and he built that at home to make this happen faster. And both are going to know. Both are going to know that the other is landing, and looks like there's a fire galley coming out for the Dravidians, a normal galley coming out for Vasco da Gama. They are going to fight on water.
I don't think Gajamata can see where Vasco da Gama has landed.
No, but he will know that it's coming.
Information asymmetry.
He won't know what it is, but he'll know that it is coming because he saw the transport ship. Let's try to figure out what he does and doesn't know.
Ooh, cavalry. So we're going to see scout cav.
It looks like he doesn't know. I think you'd kind of expect archers, so the cavalry might be a surprise, but I don't know how much it matters. We'll see. And notice Vasco Sendo. I'm sorry, we're talking over each other because there's just so much happening right now, and it's going to be a tower from Vasco da Gama. That's why he sent 4 villagers. He sent 4 villagers, and I think, Vasco da Gama Gajamata is going to see that, and is he going to rush this down? The scouts are coming in. What are the archers doing? There's so much happening right now. This is going to be a crazy, chaotic islands game. Fletching is coming in for the archers, so they can do more damage. He's walking into the town center. He's going to find these wood lines, Vasco da Gama is. And the scouts in tower, they kill a vill, they drive Gajamata off of gold. What's the next move? He's going to come out to this gold, maybe. Oh, boy. And the barracks is at home. Oh, this is so important because he can make a spear. He can make a spear to defend. We have not seen this. I just want to point out, I have watched every single game in the main event so far. I don't think we've seen a game quite like this. I don't think we've seen a double landing like this. Oh, and then there's probably fighting happening on the water that I'm not even paying attention to.
There is. We've got a fire ship chasing a galley.
And in small numbers, the fire ships should beat the galleys. So that's great for Gajamata. So Gajamata's alive, guys. The dream is alive.
Vasco da Gama is collecting gold currently on Gajamata's island. So blue's collecting on red's island, and that probably means he's planning to make knights as soon as he moves up to the next age.
Yeah, and yep. Yep, that sounds right. And he'll be able to use that gold to buy his way up to the next stage potentially. At the market, you'll buy the food that you need. That's a common thing because it's hard to get food. You have to build farms first after the free food disappears. But if you go to the market, you can just buy the food, get a good time. And Gajamata has forced a lot of idle time. He has forced a lot of reaction, which is good. I'm going to check the villager death count. Pretty healthy for both, right? There's been some good damage.
Gajamata's got a 2 villager lead at the moment.
Oh, that's
and it's 2
Gajamata! Go Gajamata! And he's building a tower to defend. And he's got the spear. So these scouts actually, I don't think Vasco da Gama scouts can get much value. The spear counters those scouts really hard. Vasco da Gama went on to stone at home. I don't know if that's for towers forward or towers at home to defend from these archers. As Gajamata mixed in a stable for his own scouts.
Another thing worth mentioning right here is that with Vasco da Gama, he's got this tower, right? And he's essentially cut the Red's island in half, where he's denied half of the island from Gajamata. But unfortunately, there's almost nothing on the other side of the island. We've got 1 relic and a couple patches of trees, but he's not controlling the stone. The only thing he's managing to control right now is the wood and that 1 gold patch. So even though he's taken away half of the island's usefulness, he's taken away the more useless half.
No, and that's
Gajamata has a better presence on the water, which means he has access to both of these 2 small islands with 4 relics between them and plenty of gold and stone.
As the Vasco da Gama's got a tower at home, which will push away the archers. Still, I don't know. I think I like Gajamata's position. In small numbers, and this is kind of a quirk, in many ways, Vikings are an incredibly strong naval civ, but they lack this unit, the fire galley. And fire galleys are stronger in small numbers, as Vasco da Gama brings his scouts home. He's like, okay, fine, you defend with scouts. My scouts are kind of, you defend with spears. My scouts are kind of useless on your island. I will bring them home. That's wild. It's really smart to try to clean up, and I think they will successfully clean up Gajamata's forward army.
That was a good move. That was a very good move. It's kind of expensive in terms of time, transporting all of those over. But it's very, very well done.
He will successfully clean. And Gajamata will be...
Oh, no. We still have him.
Whoa! Look at that. He puts the last archer back in the transport. And these scouts are going to hunt for these archers.
Vasco da Gama is going to lose his one and only dock in just a moment.
Oh my goodness, that would be so bad for him to have to reinvest in that.
Yes, it would.
And he has no water control as the scouts do clean up the archers. So good job, Vasco. I'm not above praising him. I hope he loses. Or excuse me, I hope Gajamata wins. And we've got 4 of them.
And it looks like we've got some scout cavalry coming from that little horse-producing area. Cavalry building. Stable, that's what it's called. I know the word. We've got 4 archers versus 2 scout cav. We've got a little ring around the rosy happening, moving toward the villagers. Ooh, we're going to get a good suppression spot next to that stone. Ooh.
But he pushes them off stone.
We need some upgrades for those archers. They're just not being very effective. And we've got a quick up Castle Age for Vasco da Gama. It's going to turn badly for Gajamata.
Gajamata's right behind him, though. He's got the resources. Almost there he goes, clicks. And he'll be just a few seconds behind, and I think it's still pretty good. And I wonder now, will Gajamata... Do you invest in crossbow and bodkin arrow for your archers and keep pushing on land? Or do you switch your focus to water? And I think you keep pushing on land, probably. Because you're going to take out this dock pretty soon. It's on its way out. You're going to have undisputed water control. You still got to worry about this forward. Those 4 villagers could cause you problems. They can build a siege workshop. You can go into knights. Vasco da Gama can do a lot of damage on Gajamata's home island. But I kind of think on Vasco da Gama's island, you go into crossbow, you go into bodkin, and you try to keep this push alive, I think.
This is crazy. I'm currently following the fight mostly on Vasco da Gama's island. I think that's really the place to watch.
Yep.
If If Gashimata could kill those 4 villagers that are forward on his own island, he would be in a really good spot.
No, this is the only. Those 4 villagers are the only threat, I think, to Gajimata right now. He has water. He has a great forward position. He just needs to worry that Vasco da Gama is going to get to Castle Age in 10 seconds, and these 4 villagers and the stable with knights potentially. And I know they're Viking knights. They're not great knights, but they're still knights. Is going to be incredibly threatening. It's going to be very, very, very scary. And I wonder if Gajimata goes into pikes at home, monks at home. I don't know what he does. Well, I know what he does. He slaps down a second TC. He says, I'm going to boom this out. Okay. And on the island, it's a monastery.
Over.
Yeah, was he building a siege workshop at first?
It looked to me like a second town center.
Oh, okay. On Gajimata's island, I mean. Vasco's
Correct.
building a... Okay. Oh, really? He was building a town center on the enemy island?
That's what it looked like for a second there.
He
changed his mind very quickly, though.
The absolute nerve.
I have done that in the past. Having a villagers on the enemy island is just so incredibly useful.
And Gajimata did go crossbows, did go bodkin.
The battle elephant coming.
And he forces
take that out.
The siege workshop.
We don't have murder holes yet. So we've got villagers taking out the tower.
Oh, very nice. Okay.
We've got an elephant.
Elephant. Oh, whoa! He's walled out. He's walled out. Oh! Well done. From Vasco.
Oh, we've got a repair and destroy battle. Which is going to... Ho! 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 And a second
Gajimata
elephant coming.
Great position on the wood line.
That tower is going down. Okay, I think Gajimata is going to clean off his island.
The question is, the monk is out, and it's going to start converting that elephant. And what do you do? What do you do? What do you do?
Oh no!
You have to kill the elephant. He kills the elephant.
You lose the elephant.
He suicides the elephant for the greater good.
Good. Well done. Well done.
And the villagers.
Going to be a rout.
The villagers are on the run. Help!
You need something faster than an elephant to chase
them. Meanwhile,
we've got a new dock built by Vasco da Gama. It is again getting fire shipped down.
Yeah, I think the Navy thing has not worked out for Vasco da Gama. He's got the better position.
Oh, we've got an onager war happening. Oh, and they're dodging the micro.
Yep. How's your micro, Gaja? How's your micro, Vasco? Let's see what you got. They're scared. They're scared of each other. They're nervous. They're shy.
On Vasco da Gama's island. I'd like to see a lot more control over that stone resource and something to take out that tower and that TC on the left.
Yeah, the tricky thing is, Gajimata's got some places he can pressure with these crossbows, but if he comes over to the stone and then they run away, he has to go all the way around to find a new place to hit. So he's got places to pressure, but it's not perfect as Gajimata takes out a mangonel. Looks like he traded.
Gajimata is cleaning up that last villager, and that knight is not going to make it against that elephant.
So okay. Oh, and the villagers come out. The villagers come out. He's sending the boys and the girls. Villagers are military. Villagers are military if you believe, and he does believe. And he takes out one mangonel. And
he's going to get the other.
Kaja's repairing. Is there a
mistake?
Crossbow? Yeah, you kind of a crossbow, but nope, it goes down. Okay, that's expensive for Gajimata. And he lands a shot on the crossbow too.
On Gajimata's island, he's currently taking out the military buildings.
Yep.
Removing the last vestiges.
And I think he went up a light path. I think that the forward is completely gone. I think there's no more villagers on Gajimata's island, it looks like.
Oh, we've got an onager chasing a bunch of... Oh, we got a juicy onager shot over on Vasco's island.
Yeah, that's bad. That's bad.
And a second one.
That's rough for Gaja. And this town center...
Archers are in a bad way.
Town center, good attack ground there on the light cap. Wow.
Ooh.
And he won't be able to deny that town center.
That is spicy, no.
And the next step, Vasco da Gama's got 786 stone. He can afford a castle. And I would put the castle right here. If he thinks he can do it, if he thinks he's got the control, if he thinks he can push away the crossbows with the mangonel, as the skirmishers go down. And that's where the castle goes. Okay. And that's going to kind of defend both golds a little bit. And that's great for Vasco da
And also
Gama.
start pushing out the red influence.
He's
Gajamada is going to lose his toehold, and it's going to turn into a water battle.
Well, I've seen people, hold on, I've seen people really go rat mode on islands. So I don't think, I wouldn't rule it out yet, but it's definitely going to slow Gajamada down and push him back. And meanwhile, Vasco da Gama's
ability to produce military here, because
but the villagers are alive. He can build new production buildings.
The stable and the archery range are going to be out of range of that castle.
But the villagers are alive. He can make new production buildings.
More difficult.
Yeah.
We've got a siege workshop coming.
Yeah, and you can be so annoying as long as there's a villager here building production buildings. Gajamada can be so annoying, and Vasco da Gama can never sleep easy at night. And if you look up at
did we just lose the villager? I think we just lost the villager.
Wow, I say that, and then he loses the villager. Okay, all right. The push is less alive than it was a minute ago.
Oh, we've got 4 or 5 villagers entering a transport ship on Gajamada's island. He's planning to restock that villager supply.
he's like, I've got a good thing going. Let's do more of it. And he's got the stone for a castle too. So maybe what he's thinking is drop the castle.
Another villager.
Maybe he's thinking drop the castle, go to Imp, and really fight on Gajamada's island. And if you look up here, where the units are for Vasco da Gama, he has no water presence. And in the long run, and we haven't gotten to the long run yet, but in the long run, no water presence on islands is death. At some point, Vasco da Gama has to finally clean this up as an armored elephant. That's a ram
happening on Gajamada's island.
Oh no!
We had a monk stole an elephant, and then we had 2 knights run in. Oh, looks like that's taken care of. However, we've got a military building going up, and that's going to be designed to clean off these buildings, just end them.
Make another armored elephant, I suppose, probably to clean up these buildings, which is really important and good. Vasco da Gama can be annoying on Gajamada's island too. And I just want to say, Joseph, I have watched every single islands game in the main event so far, and I have never yet seen a game that has had so little going on water. There is nothing happening on water. It's islands, and there's nothing happening on water. And the villagers have come forward on Vasco da Gama's island. Yeah. Right? You know what it reminds me?
Patrols from Red. We've got patrols from Red running around the outside trying to make sure that the battle stays off the water. You see these patrols they're probably on an automatic patrol around.
Yeah.
You can set up an automatic patrol so that your units just go perpetually back and forth until they run into an enemy.
Yep.
And I think he's really trying to prevent
the redock
from happening. Oh!
The redock is coming.
He's making 3 more.
Yep, the redock is coming.
We're going to see a fight on the water.
Castle's going up.
Longboats.
Castle's going up on Vasco da Gama's TC, though. Yep, and we are going to see the longboats. One of the most beautiful and satisfying units in the game, in my opinion. And Vasco da Gama thinks about a castle.
We've got a Onager War happening. Onager War.
How's your micro?
Onager's going to try to get a nice piece of shot.
How's your micro? And the Mangonel is alive. The Mangonel is alive.
Oh.
The Mangonel. Oh,
Vasco's is.
Boom.
Gajamada's isn't. Oh.
Oh. Oh. The dancing.
That was a juicy shot.
The dancing, the unit control.
And another castle going down, trying to defend.
Okay, is the castle going down, or is it going up? Right? It's like, are you down for something, or are you up for something, right?
Yeah.
And they click up to Imperial Age at the exact same moment.
This is tight. We've got a 25 military lead for Gajamada. A lot of that is on the water. We've got an eco advantage for Gajamada of 6 villagers at the moment.
Narrow.
It is not huge.
Narrow but good.
Narrow but good. So far, we've got a much better presence for Gajamada in controlling his own home island. The water situation.
Joseph.
Oh, we've got 3 Viking longships already.
Joseph.
And they are going to start eating the water presence because I don't think these tiny little fire ships are going to do much against them.
Something has occurred to me.
What?
Look at where the golds are on Vasco da Gama's island. Just look at them. Look at their position. There are only 2 golds.
Oh no. And they're both in range of the water.
They're both, well, No, sorry, Vasco da Gama's island. Did I say Gajimata's island? I mean Vasco da Gama's
Gajimata's island.
Both of them can be targeted. That is, and I don't know if Gajimata will see it or notice, but if he moves this mangonel over or sets his crossbows right here in this cozy little nook, he will be able to deny both golds. And with no gold access, Vasco da Gama would be in so much trouble. And I really think he should. I wish he would. He needs to. Please do it, Gajimata. Do it. Do it for the fans. Do it for the viewers. Do it for me. Please.
Move it over. Man, if he was to get all those villagers with one nice juicy mangonel shot, that would be cozy. Choice.
It's such a cozy little nook between the two castles. And he could do it, and it's killing me. Oh, if he knew. If only he knew. As the crossbows come around. Yep, he can deny that gold. He can deny these.
Think it through. Oh, he's thinking about it. He moved in that direction.
Is he going? Is he going? Do it, Gajimata.
He just ate a couple of
Do it. Do it, Gajimata.
I don't think... He might not be able to see it. What's the current fog of war status there?
I'll look. Let's see. Let's see what we got. No, he can see it. He can see it. He has no excuse. And if he truly is Tato, he should know there are two golds on each island. You deny the gold, you win the game.
Coming forward. Gajimata's castle is about to be in a world of hurt.
And I think
that's where a lot of the focus is going right now.
Gajimata needs to pivot onto water, I think, because he's probably going to lose this castle. Treb's produced from 2 castles, Treb's produced from 1 castle, and he's going to need to pivot back to water. And that's what he is doing.
Vasco da Gama's taking the island.
That's what he's doing with the fast fire ships.
Vasco da Gama is taking the islands. He's probably going to put castles on them and use them to deny water.
Yep, and that's heads up play from Vasco da Gama. And I think Gajimata, I feel like he hasn't done enough in the last 5 minutes. I feel like he had a good position, but I just feel like he has not done enough damage. He hasn't stayed ahead on water, and it looks like what he's going into is he's still going to invest on land. He's getting a cannon, but he's also going back into water. And in low numbers, the fire ships are going to be better than the longboats. Longboats are amazing.
Oh, that was terrible. He lost the castle. He took out 1 out of the 3 trebuchets that were trying to take it down.
3 siege workshops from Gajimata and Vasco da Gama's island. I think he has cooked so much that he has overheated his brain. I don't think 3 siege workshops is the play. I don't know if that's it, Chief.
Unless he's planning to flood battle, if he's planning to flood elephants in and just try to muscle his way through, although I don't think he has the military to defend them. There it is. Gajimata is victorious.
Help me out here. What just happened?
I don't understand. Was that an internet glitch?
Well, no, we saw the GG. Vasco da Gama did call it. And so, yeah, I have this experience too, Joseph, where I'm like, yeah, like it feels a little early to me. And because the eco, right, there's no tech advantage, there's no significant eco advantage. It's a little one, but it's not that big. There's not a huge military advantage. I guess, like, here's the thought, maybe. Maybe you feel like you can't produce enough longboats. Maybe he thinks that Gajimata is further ahead. Maybe he thinks like, oh, I wasn't able to do enough damage on the island. It might
be an information issue because he can't see the home island.
It still feels a little early to me. Now I am not a pro player. I'm a total scrub. On the team game ladder, I got up to about the 90th or 95th percentile, which is actually really good. But it's actually really bad because that last 5 to 10% is a huge skill difference. So I really am not in the position of these players to evaluate, but it does feel a little early for me, particularly on islands. It's hard to kill people off on islands, even when you're at a disadvantage. Maybe Vasco da Gama is just, maybe he doesn't feel like he's truly dead, but he feels like, I'm probably not going to win this. I'm up 3-1. But I don't know. It still feels early to me. Still feels early.
You think it's like a psychological rationing that's going on here, where Vasco da Gama has that 3-1 advantage, and so he doesn't want to invest the brain power and the attention into this particular game,
You know,
and is trying to conserve that resource for the next one.
it's a real factor because, like, you want to say, don't tell me about stamina and endurance. These are nerds sitting in chairs, right? But the truth is that, as anyone who's taken like a multi-hour standardized test knows, sitting in a chair and working your brain really hard for a few hours can be exhausting. It absolutely can, right? And so there is a stamina issue. And I think all the players at this level have pretty good stamina, right? This is not their first best of 7. This is not their first tournament. This is not their first rodeo. They can do it. So I want to say no, but maybe. No, but maybe. That's. I don't know. I'm looking for an explanation too.
What it looks like is that we've gotten from a place where Gajimata had a fairly clear advantage to a place where that advantage is narrowing and possibly disappearing. And that's when, at that point, Vasco da Gama is trending up, not down. And that's when Vasco da Gama throws in the towel. Just a very odd game.
Yeah.
We're trending toward a neutral game again.
That's what I thought. So, I mean, one of the things you want to ask is, that's what I think, Joseph. And that's what you think. Why are we wrong?
I see what might have done it. So the southern part of Vasco da Gama's island is invisible to him. He doesn't have eyes on it. And he knows there's a bunch of military-producing buildings there. He's not going to eradicate that quickly. And he lost that castle on the right. And the 2 trebs are still up. I think that's what might have done it. And he has no stone to replace the castle.
Honestly,
I think that might have been it.
I think that could be it. And those can produce bombard cannons. You can snipe the trebs. You're playing defense. You don't really have anything on land. You have to also be investing on water to retake it. I can see the argument. I'm not sure. Look, I am not sure I agree. Not that I have to, because these players are better than me. They know better.
I still think it was fairly neutral. I think this position is far less. If Vasco da Gama thought that Gajimata had a large advantage, I don't think he really did. But I can see how he would believe that. I mean, at this point, both of them just lost a castle. Gajimata lost his little castle controlling this area above the 2 archery ranges. And, it's 2 trebuchets versus 2 trebuchets. It's pretty neutral. But I think the information disadvantage where Vasco da Gama could not see the bottom of the island where he knew there was military production, where he has no military production on the opposing island, I think that's where the imbalance was that made him.
Well, and I said it. I said it at the beginning of the cast, right? You don't play, usually in Age of Empires 2, they don't play until they lose. They play until they think they can't win. They play until they think they've lost. So, I suppose
it's interesting though, because there's an ethic attached to that. It's considered rude to force the fight to the last man. And, when we're talking about mental stamina, that's another thing that you're trying to conserve. But at the same time, you never know if there was a path to victory if you gave up early. That kind of thing is also going on.
Well, and
if you hold on, sometimes a path to victory opens up. You wait for the opponent to make a mistake while you don't die.
We truly, and in these pro games, we do see early GGs sometimes. And we also see
some players known for it.
Daniel is an American pro player that a lot of people think, he sometimes throws in the towel before he really should. And conversely, there's other players in this tournament, like ACCM, Vietnamese player, very good, very interesting. He's the smiliest human being on planet Earth, I swear. But he has a habit of resigning really late. He doesn't resign until he's like 5,000 score behind. So it goes both ways, and there are reasonable decisions that can be made even if they're not ultimately correct. But we are in the next game, and it is Bay, which is another map custom designed for this tournament. It's only played in Hidden Cup. It's affectionately known as Pants, right? Here's the leg of the pants and the other leg of the pants, and then here's the belt up here. So that's the little bit of community lore is, this is not Bay, this is Pants. But it is called Bay because of this bay here in the middle. So it's what we call a hybrid map. It has land elements and water elements, and both are important, right? You've got all this fish that you can take. That is strategically important. And so you typically pick
Can you
civs here that
explain?
have some kind of way to get an early fishing bonus, but that also have some good options on land.
Could you talk briefly about the reason why fish is so valuable? Is it just because the fishing ships basically act as additional villagers and let you get
You
more
know,
out faster, or is
I'm
there actually a
glad
speed thing?
I'm glad you asked because I have a galaxy brain theory that it's not as valuable as people think it is. Okay, and here's the reasoning. Okay, let me explain why. So first, to understand why it's not valuable, I think maybe this is big brain time from Joseph, right? You need to understand why it is valuable. Why it's valuable is that there is 225 salmon in each of these little fish patches. That's a total of 1,800 food. That can supercharge your economy in the early game. And when you get that dock, you can produce extra, resource collecting units. You can boost your economy in the early game. You can't build more town centers until much later in the game, until the Third Age, Castle Age. And so you getting that dock up allows you to expand your economy in a way that you cannot otherwise in the Dark and Feudal Age. That's why it's so strong. Okay, but here's the thing. That dock costs 150 wood. The fishing ships are 75 wood each. You're going to build 2 or 3 of them before you click up to Feudal Age. When you click up to Feudal Age, you're going to have to build a mining camp for gold so that you can build fire galleys. You're going to be buying fire galleys. You're going to fight on water. Now, my big brain theory is that you spend more defending water than you get from controlling water. I think it is a net
That's correct.
loss. I think it is a net
I
loss.
also think
Often.
I also think that in addition to the net loss aspect, you run into a problem where the economic benefit of fishing ships is too specialized because they can only collect
Well,
food and they can only collect one type of food, and
I,
they with farms, you get the advantage that they're easy to defend as long as you keep them under the range of something that can shoot. But with fishing ships, they have to wander all the way out. I mean, you can push deer, but you can't push fish,
no, but
is what I'm saying.
you can eventually fish trap. Which does require
True, but
another investment.
the advantage is
I guess
the
I'm
advantage
saying
at that point is zero compared to a farm.
I think you have a good. Well, it's at least as fast and maybe faster than farms. I can't remember. Sometimes the fishing rates get changed in patches. Anyway, I'm not totally disagreeing. I think I disagree, but I'm not sure about that point of things. But okay, so that was the 300 IQ take, is that it's not valuable because you lose more trying to defend it than you get from it. But here is the 9,000 IQ play. This is the 9,000 IQ analysis. Is even though you are losing money, and Matekus actually just barely said this in the chat. He barely made the point that I'm going to make right now. He says, I think the issue is if you don't go for water, then the opponent doesn't need to spend the resources to defend the water. So here's the problem. If you don't go water, you're giving up 1,800 resources, and then it is efficient for your opponent. So you don't need to fight for this because it's good for you. You need to fight for this so that it's bad for your opponent.
This reminds me of advertising economics. So, with the duel between Coca-Cola and Pepsi, both of them have a certain share of the market. They have a certain number of customers that they can rely on to be Pepsi fans versus Coke fans. And then they've got weirdos like me that enjoy both. But the funny thing is, if one of them spends money on advertising and tries to take back market share, the only way to counter that is for the other one to advertise, and then you end up with both of them just keeping the market share that they already had to begin with. So there's an inefficiency there.
Yeah.
But it's an inefficiency where if the other side advertises, you have to advertise to counter, and then both of you are spending money and neither of you are getting a benefit.
You're not fighting to win.
Just to maintain status.
You're not fighting to win, you're fighting to not lose. And you have to do it.
Right. And the funny thing about that is it reminds me of wrestling. So when you're wrestling or doing like jiu-jitsu, any kind of grappling sport, there's positions that you can get into where you just are sitting on top of the other guy, and the other guy has to spend theoretically more energy just to get out of that disadvantaged position, or just to breathe and exist, than you have to spend sitting on him. Mm-hmm. And so there's calculations that you're making, like how much energy am I spending versus how much is the other guy spending. where you're trying to force them. It's siege warfare. It's siege warfare all the way down. Turtles all the way down.
Yep.
Starve out the opponent.
Yep. And it's funny because, like, on net, this is not the optimal play. It's a prisoner's dilemma almost, right? Like, you have to play the game even though it would be better if nobody played the game.
Right.
Or I'm not describing it exactly right, but I think the idea is coming across, right? So here we are, investing thousands of resources to defend less than that. But there you go, right? And both still only have 2 fishing ships, and they're just microing their fire galleys, right? It is not the most exciting thing to watch, at least in my opinion. To me, water fights in Age of Empires 2 are like watching paint dry, unfortunately. And I apologize for that. I should be making this exciting. And I could say, oh, then the demo is coming in, which actually some of the demo hits can be exciting, as we do see an explosion. Actually, okay, I say this is boring, and then something not boring happens, which is a villager died. And that's a big deal. And Vasco da Gama is winning water. He's winning water. No more fishing ships for Gajimata. Lost 1 villager. Vasco da Gama is now, because of that, 3 eco units ahead. I said it was boring. Right? Everybody turn off your computers, leave the stream. I'm bad at this. I don't know what's going on. That was huge.
Wow.
That was huge. And Gajimata's walling up. And that tells me maybe he wants to boom. He's not thinking aggression. And nobody's gone for it. But Vasco da Gama, it looks like, might do the same thing. He's partially walled. We'll see if he finishes walling. At some point, you need to shift to land aggression. Because you're really, like, once you've taken the water, like, that's nice. As Gajimata tries to come back on water pretty fiercely. And he's diving with the demo. You want to hit as many fire galleys as possible. But Vasco da Gama's done the right thing and split up. And Gajimata doesn't really get a good demo hit. As Vasco da Gama comes in and tries to get his own demo hit, but it's only on 1. It's okay. It's not great. As they say, however many Roentgen, not great, not terrible. And
is that a reference to?
Yeah, I've never
is that
seen
a reference to Chernobyl.
I've never seen it, but yes. One of the kind of strange things about meme culture is that you don't need to have seen the underlying media often to use the memes. And that's a really strange, fascinating thing.
Well, I've run into trouble with that, actually. So when I was growing up, I watched a lot of movies, like pretty much any movie that came out, minus the stuff that was like, extremely violent. I watched just about every movie that came out. And then I was a religious missionary for a couple of years and didn't watch any movies during that time. And then, tried to catch up a little bit, watched The Avengers, watched, Batman 3 from the Christopher Nolan series. And I just never caught up fully, and I've allowed myself to get further and further and further behind. And so now what I do is when there's a culturally significant movie, I watch the Wikipedia plot spoiler and a few clips on YouTube, and I'm caught up to the point where I can participate in the cultural conversation without having wasted 2.5 hours watching something that is more often than not worth 2.5 hours.
I should consider that. I don't watch anything.
It got me in trouble, though. I was in law school, and I was talking with a buddy, and I was quoting, what is that Star Wars movie? Rogue One. I was quoting elements from Rogue One and referencing it, and he said, "Man, that's such a good movie." And I said, "I agree." And he said, and then it came out in the conversation that I hadn't seen it. And he was shocked and appalled and a little bit offended and thought, "Do I even trust this human being?" And I said, "Well, I don't need to have seen it. I've seen clips. I've read the plot spoiler. I'm aware of how the memes are used. I know where this sits in the cultural milieu. I mean, I can use this cultural touchstone. I don't have to have sat down and wasted a couple hours of my time." I did eventually sit down and watch that one, but, I get it into this sort of situation often where I'm quoting and referencing movies that I haven't seen or books I haven't read because, thin slicing, man. This is something we've made videos about.
Yeah.
Extract the information you want and leave the rest behind.
I need to tell you, and then we need to actually talk about the game because some things are happening. There's some updates. But my boss at work is a lawyer, and he did his undergraduate education at Yale University. And he once said that the purpose of a Yale education is to teach you to know what a book says without having to read it.
Yes, yes, and your brother mentioned something very similar when he went to his MBA.
True. It's kind of true.
Yeah.
There's some things that are not good about it, but there's also some things that are really good about it, and it's kind of true.
It is. When I was a history major for a brief time in college, I took a class that was History 101, and it was taught by a professor who was, it was his self-avowed goal to make less history majors in the school. So he said, essentially, if you're going to pursue a degree in history, there's not a lot of career tracks unless you're planning to shoot for academia. And if you're planning to shoot for academia, you should know how much you'll ever hate it early rather than late.
Yep.
So a lot of the emphasis of this History 101 class was on processing massive amounts of reading at a time, reading for detail in the way that you would have to for writing papers. A lot of it was citation-driven stuff. So, I mean, far more how to be an academic than just a regular history class. And one of the assignments he did that I thought was fascinating is he had us read a book called, it was about the collapse of the Roman Empire, and the name's going to, The Fall of Rome and the End of Civilization, I think is the title. And he said, okay, for this assignment, you are allowed 5 minutes to read the book. And you have to write a book report on it, essentially, summarizing its key points, addressing its key arguments, and answering a couple of very specific questions about what's in the book. And that exercise, he gave a little bit of instruction on how to do that, didn't just throw us in blind, was so valuable for the rest of my degree. I eventually switched and became an English major with a philosophy minor. And that ability gained from that class that did indeed convince me I didn't want to be a history major was incredibly valuable skill.
Okay.
We've got 14 skills right now for Vasco da Gama.
Speaking of which, let's take 5 seconds.
We're seeing a small eco advantage happening. Gajamada has complete control over water, although that's a very narrow part of this map.
So, you're right, 2 classic strategies, right? Vasco da Gama says, fine, I lost the water, I'm going to boom on 4 TCs. Come and break me, right? I am going to spend 0 on military. Come and break me if you can, right? And he's even walled up here.
Gajamada is building forward siege workshops, which
and
are designed to be
Gajamada is like, okay, fine, I will come forward. I will try to break you. And that's what it's going to be. He's also got 4 on stone. That makes you think about a forward castle potentially. He's on 3 TCs himself. So here's the question, right, in some part, and we can talk a little bit about these Civ matchups and what units they're likely to make too, and who's stronger at what phase of the game. But sort of on a very high level, what's going on here is Vasco da Gama is saying, I am going to go for the greediest possible economic boom you can imagine. Break me if you can. And Gajamada is like, okay, I have a time window in which I need to do damage.
Gajamada has a wall. Gajamada has broken through Vasco da Gama's wall by attacking these houses that are close to the water, because this wall, unfortunately, you have to butt up against the water. We now have access to
and
Vasco da Gama's base through this water area.
He needs to wall up.
And we've also got...
If these light cav dive in, that's going to be nasty. Siege workshop in defense.
Through. And are doing onagers in defense, do you think?
Yep, and that should, right, he can micro and dance against the siege. And Gajamada does the right move. He dives with the light cav. And he's going to scout around and say, what you got cooking back there? What are you doing? He's collecting information. He's pushing, look at all that idle time, right? Like pushing the villagers away from the gold, away from the wood. That's big. That's great. Now, Vasco da Gama still has this gold, so it's not like Gajamada is killing Vasco da Gama, right? But he's saying, all right, let's do the damage. Let's see what kind of damage we can get. You're going to sit back. You're going to be greedy. All right, I'm going to punish that greed.
He lifts the shots against the villagers there.
Yep. And I love, by the way, right, I love what Gajamada is doing here by building these outposts. These outposts will give him all kinds of vision about what the... see if I can switch perspectives. It will give him vision about where the mangonel is. Right? He'll be able to track the mangonel. He'll know where it is, and he slats it.
That was good. Did you see that?
Yep, he
Oh,
splashed.
well done. He got the onager.
And now he's got
the
3
menu.
on the TC. He's harassing the wood line.
He's going to bring down that TC with mangonels only.
It looks like it, right? Next mangonel is going to be coming out in a hot second from Vasco da Gama. But this is serious business. And notice the stone count is climbing. We will see villagers come forward for a castle. And I would just love a castle like right here that threatens the gold. And okay, Vasco da Gama sneaking out. He's expanding, right? That's a big deal. And I think Gajamata is going to see that. He's going to know. He is a knower. And I would love a forward castle just right here next to the market. Threaten 3 TCs and the gold. Give it to me, Gajamata. Right? Inject it directly into my veins. That's what I want. He's gonna do it. I know he's gonna do it.
We get redemption. Does the Portuguese get redemption?
Oh! Yes, Portuguese get good monks. Redemption will allow the monks to convert the siege units. Oh!
And also the buildings, so he can destroy the walls more quickly.
And the death count is climbing. The death count is climbing. And now Gajamata knows about that mangonel. And they dance. Gajamata loses one.
Got one.
And now Vasco is going into light cab.
Those horses are going to take out that one.
They dive. Are we going to get it? Are we going to get it? We're not going to get it.
I don't think so, no.
Another one goes in.
Saves the night.
Another one goes in. Nope. Light cav dive. They counter monks. They have conversion resistance.
Ooh, they're going to take 2 of those monks for sure.
Good engagement for Vasco. Great engagement for Vasco da Gama. But he did get a couple conversions. And now he's got more cap. Look at the military control for Gajamata. And the castle, right where I wanted it.
Castle.
Thank you, Gajamata.
It's going to take out two town centers.
Almost
in range
3.
Of that castle.
Almost 3. Yep, there we go. Gajamata. Yes, let's go, boys and girls. Let's go.
I could see that.
Go.
That one made sense. That was a good GG. Man, that castle just sunk it. That was final nail in the coffin.
Yep.
Man, this is interesting. So this is very Tato, if indeed Gajamata is Tato, to have this come from behind, surprise, Cheeto finger-covered, Dorito dust fueled victory. That's the meme, right? Tato's the Dorito guy.
Oh, yeah. Tatito the Dorito. Right. Spam Doritos in chat to support Tatito. Eat it. If you're at home, open your bag of Doritos, eat a chip in Tato's honor. We don't know if this is Tato, right? The identities of all the players are hidden. But a lot of people think it's Gajamata, that he's Tato. I agree. That is my belief. And 2-3, still down, but on the comeback, maybe. On the comeback. And if a player can do it, it's Tato. Oh, that was so good. Vasco was he was too greedy. He was too greedy. And it could have paid off, but it did not pay off. And I especially think like those 3 town centers all forward, and he was kind of forced into it based on his resource positions. But well, maybe not, because there was a backwood line, 2 backwood lines. There was a back gold. Like all 3 town centers forward, vulnerable like that, that just feels like an invitation for Tato to come, for Gajamata to come forward, lay on the pressure, do some damage, punish the greed, and pull out the victory. And that's exactly what happened.
I think there is that wood line further back, but based off of the position of the resources, I really do think that
do you think
Vasco da Gama's position was about where it needed to be. There's nothing directly in the corner. He can't go further back. He could only have gone a little bit further north to collect that wood line, and or worked a little bit harder to sneak